I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me out to from Kadesh Barnea to spy the land. And I brought back word to him as it was in my heart. Nevertheless, my brethren who went up with me made the heart of the people melt, but I wholly followed the Lord my God. Caleb had made up his mind that he was not going to compromise what God said. He was not going to compromise for the benefit of the other. You think about this. 10 people said, we can't go. Only Joshua and Caleb said, no, we can do this. It would have been very easy for Caleb to say, you know what? Well, I'm outnumbered. Well, okay, we'll disagree with them. But Caleb had a different spirit. It was a spirit of courage. It was a spirit of trust. It was a spirit of obedience. And Caleb would not compromise. In fact, he stood up and he spoke up because he would not compromise for other people. He would not compromise for other people. I think oftentimes we need to understand this, that God has placed you where you are to speak up and to stand up for him. You're his voice. Sometimes you're on your job and there's nobody, people, and you've been there. You're on your job and people are talking all kind of crazy stuff and people say this opinion, I have this opinion, I have that opinion, and oftentimes we just keep our mouth shut. And God is saying, I placed you here to have the courage to speak up and to stand up because you represent me on that job. You represent me in that neighborhood. You represent me wherever you are. Caleb had the courage to speak up and to stand up, even though no one else did. And sometimes when you do that, you stand alone. I remember what Paul said in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 16 and 17. Paul said this. He says, when I had my first defense, no one stood with me. But don't blame them. I'm not putting the blame on them. No one stood with me. But then he said, but the Lord was with me. And so we've got to understand that we've got to stand. Caleb was a man who stood up no matter where anybody else was standing. He stood up for God.